Hi everybody, welcome to another Keys to Success video. This is the third in the series, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Masters Lucio player. Well, he's a support player, but the stuff that we're going to be looking at is on Lucio. Now, part of this Lucio player's problem is his lethality. He's very much kind of being a heal bot, very central of his team. Using a lot of heal amp cooldowns that I want to kind of show the more offensive potential, because this individual, when he submitted his replay, said that he was in mid-masters and was really struggling to climb. He's struggling to find that last little bit that will push him over the edge and get him to Grandmaster. So in order to kind of make that jump from Masters to Grandmaster, that's a pretty big climb. It's the hardest climb that it's been. As you go higher, getting from Masters to Grandmaster is just as hard as it is getting from Grandmaster to 4200. It gets harder and harder and harder, and that last 100 SR can really be a hurdle. And in that SR, you really need to start taking things into your own hands, regardless of the position you play. You need to be able to make plays as an individual, especially in ranked. So this individual is really struggling with their lethality and their mechanics in general, so honestly it's really impressive and just shows how much you can get by just kind of being a good healer. But the first thing that I wanted to point out on Lucio is that he does have a one-shot combo. Now I'm gonna try and do this. Now, this is in the practice range, and I'm not on my normal setup, so don't judge me too hard if this doesn't work. But yeah, so the one-shot combo is 4 headshots, and then after that it's the boop and the melee cancel. So you can't cancel it the other direction, so if you try and melee boop, there's quite a delay. It's not a perfect animation cancel going the other direction, but even if you're at a standstill, for example, the punch still hits, so your target will still get hit before they go outside of your boop range, even if they are not. So even if you're standing still, the hitbox is going to come out quick enough and be large enough that you will punch them before they exit your boop range. So 4 headshots, boop melee is enough to 100 to 0 a 200 HP target. So that's just the thing to point out, is that you do have a really high damage combo, so make sure you're using it. Headshots, you've got nice big fat projectiles, so especially if you're going against somebody who's stationary, if you can see somebody who's not looking at you, even if you get them down to like 150 HP, if they're not looking at you, they are primed for assassination. But that's going to require you be in better positioning and getting some more information. So we're going to be taking a look at the replay now and kind of showing what you should be doing to try and be more proactive and making plays as a Masters Lucio player. Okay, so the map that we're going to be looking at is Hollywood, and the individual who submitted this replay is Red13, I guess is his name, or Red XIII, but either way, he's the player slot 10 on the red team. You can kind of see him in the middle of the team right here. That's our boy here for this video. Now, in this composition, because it's Masters, we are going to talk about the compositions. We haven't been talking about compositions in the gold and silver videos, simply because composition really doesn't matter. If you're good enough at your hero just as an individual, you should be able to win in those ranks with just basic cursory evaluations of who your team is playing and who your opponents are playing. But for ranked and Masters, it's going to start mattering a lot more. So your composition is the Reinhardt and the Zarya. You have the McCree May, it's a good composition, as well as you have the Lucio and the Mercy. Now, on the opponent side of the things, they're doing the same sort of thing, except they're running the Reinhardt and the Diva, and then they also have the Ashe instead of the May, and then they also have the Zenyatta, where you are playing Lucio. So in this, the advantages that they have is that they have a lot higher shield break, mostly because they're going to be playing the Zenyatta. Zenyatta has an incredible amount of shield break. Their double hit scan is going to be really dangerous for picking things out when they're not behind shields. And then their Diva is going to be worse in the front matchup, but they are going to be able to control high ground a little bit more, and yeah, threaten both of the ultimates from the Zarya and the Mei. So what your advantage is here, you're playing the Lucio and not the Zenyatta. So in this kind of fight around this area, you've got the Mei, but the opponent isn't going to really be able to get a good wall unless Sether here on the Reinhardt messes up. He can try and get a wall here, but it's going to be very easy for Sether to just sidestep it, or for the Diva, not a Zarya, Diva can go on top of the wall and defense matrix to try and keep Reinhardt alive while, he's getting it. Unless you get the wall right here, which you actually tried directly before I played this video, it didn't work out. The Mei wall is going to be a difficult one here to actually find a good play off of once they're playing in the open. Now, the one thing that your team is dramatically lacking is high ground contest. Now, the interesting thing is that this high ground here is going to be very, very critical for taking this first point. And they have a few people that can use it. The D.Va, first and foremost, is going to be using this position a lot. The D.Va using high ground is going to be able to choose whether she shoots the shield, shoots over the shield, or starts to try and pressure people in the backline. And this is where that kind of attention as a resource thing comes on, is that even if the Zarya starts to look up at the D.Va, then that's pressure that's not being applied to the front shield. And if you are really going to get in here, Sether here, he's liking his life. He's got cover, he's got higher damage break, and he's got the ability to control this high ground. Nobody else on your team can actually control this high ground, so it's really up to you in order to do this. Now, they have probably one of the most challenging compositions for you to do this on, because they are running Zenyatta, double hit scan, and Mercy. So if you show yourself too much, like if this was a different composition, like a shorter range composition, or if they had something like, a Lucio Moira or something like that, then you can like really, really just exist on walls, exist on high grounds completely without fear. But the idea here is that one of the things that you're going to be able to accomplish is you're going to be able to do the same amount of healing you are in your current position if you're on a wall on a high ground or something, because your healing area, it's not just a flat circle, it's a sphere. So it's going to heal people above you and below you. So you do want to be above as much as possible for a couple reasons. Is that, again, if they're shooting you, if you see the Discord orb go on you, it's kind of probably a good idea to back off, but it just means that people are looking at you. You take one shot, you back off, you heal up, but you want to constantly be up there. If the D.Va goes up there, preferably you want to already be up there. So if she boosts up, you boop her off. Because if she boosts up and then you go up there and try and boop her off, by that time her cooldown is going to be a backup, where she can just stay up there and keep fighting you. So preferably you want to lock down that high ground. It is going to be a great piece of cover, vertical cover, so that if any of the, like the McCree, the Ashe, or the Zenyatta start trying to shoot you, you can just like take one step back and immediately be safe. But you really need to make sure that this position is not being able to taken by the defenders, because even the Ashe can coach gun up on top of here and then use a dynamite or anything like that. But if she coach guns up there and she's not assisted by her Mercy or something, you can realistically take her, especially in these close range matchups, especially if she tries to scope in or anything like that. And additionally, if she used her coach gun for mobility instead of defense. So you're going to see this kind of play out here, where not only are you talking about healing, but you need to be able to do what you're doing with your healing, but while doing other things. Providing scouting information. If you're on a vertical sightline, you're definitely going to see way more of what's going on. You're going to be able to see opposing positions. If you just land a couple of left clicks onto the Zenyatta in the backline while you're floating up here, then that means the Zenyatta needs to play safer. It's going to be easier for maybe your McCree or McCree rather to land a headshot on, maybe finish him off. If the Mercy has to go and heal him up, then that's going to be resources you're drawing away from the front line. But because the opponent is going to be way better at the shield break and this kind of frontline resource war, you need to try desperately to make sure that the opponent is going to be losing as many resources that would otherwise be invested into your poor Reinhardt, as well as making sure that the opponent can't do anything cheeky like shooting past your Reinhardt and getting some like massive dynamite plays, or being able to poke or dive anything with the actual D.Va standing up there. So high ground contest, so you have more options, more lethality choices to, if you do see of like the Zen gets to half health, you can amp speed, go nuts. But this high ground position will also just give you a lot more options, because you're going to have better information that you can use to decide whether you do need to amp heal, which ideally you really don't want to amp heal. You want to be able to use this speed advantage against the Zenyatta to engage, because you have not only the wall, but the Lucio to try and pick your engages. The defenders can't pick the engagement nearly as well, but they do have the superior resources in just a straight up frontline brawl. So let's see how this fight plays out. You're playing super simple, and then the Ashe coaches gun up onto the high ground, just gets a free dynamite, and you actually get taken out. Okay, this is the second fight that we're going to take a look at. A lot of the same problems with the Lucio just staying on the ground more or less as a heal bot and not really providing a lot of value to his team other than his just passive heals. Again, you want to be using your amped speed both in and out in order to pick those engagements, because really, if you're trying to amp heal, especially if these engagements haven't really been chosen or confirmed yet, you're going to be able to heal, quote unquote, more damage if you speed your team out of danger rather than if you try and heal up the danger, as it were, in the same way that using your amp speed is going to be able to get a lot more value if you actually go onto a target that has lost the trade, is losing the trade, is about to run out of resources that are going to keep them in the fight, have used a cooldown that is going to prevent them from winning an engagement if it happens, all these sorts of things. And these are the kind of situations that you want to be A, looking out for, and B, forcing to happen once you actually have identified that. So again, beyond all the other reasons we're talking about, being on the high ground is so important just for information. You need to know what the opponent is going to do if you're going to be able to counter it. So in this situation, and just another point in general is that when you are at these high ground positions, yes, they're a little bit more risky, but even when you are going to be on these high grounds, you always want to be on or near a wall or an edge or something like that as Lucio, because you get that speed bonus for wall riding and wall hopping, so you can go a lot further, especially if you're high ground. You can kind of use those to kind of like drop in on somebody. So let's take the example of you should be playing in kind of this area here. There's some good cover that you can use from the high grounds here, as well as just the corners. You've got kind of this compound cover that you can use to make sure that you're safe while still denying just in general this area. And this is also going to be a lot different than you had on the last fight that we looked at, because the opponent isn't going to be running Zenyatta and Mercy anymore. They're also not running double hit scan. They're running Genjis. This is actually a lot better of a composition for you, because now you as a support get to deny the area to both of their DPS, and you can, just like Mercy, because you're not as involved of a hero and you can be much more kind of centralized to the actual fight, you get to watch for what the opponent is doing, and you need to be paying attention to flanks. If a Genji or a Ashe tries to take a high ground or an off angle and they're exposed, you should be checking them, making sure that if they're too exposed, if they're too aggressive, you can just go in there and clap them. So always be careful for that, and that's why this kind of neutral position in here is going to be really good, because at any point can you drop down if you need to stay alive. If the opponent Reinhardt kind of goes for an unfavorable trade, you can come in behind him and get a boop on him to put him further into danger, or you can just simply, while you're being satellite Lucio up here, you can just pelt shots into his head over his shield. And the further forward he is, the more exposed he is. So instead of putting useless shots into his shield, you're putting shots into his actual body and chipping him down there, getting him out of his armor. Additionally, if there's people scoped in, like if the Ashe is scoping, if the Ana is scoping, boom, easy headshots, force the Ana to use a cooldown on herself instead of offensively on your Reinhardt. That alone can save a fight win. So you need to be threatening, being in a much more aggressive position that gives you more options. You can always just let gravity do its work and fall off of high ground. You can't just magically turn gravity off or invert it and woo into the sky sort of thing, which is, beyond all the other reasons that high ground is effective. You always have the option of giving up the high ground if you don't need it or you don't want it. So use it. There's like a bajillion reasons for Lucio to be on the high ground and playing around corners and things like this. So be on the high ground. Do all those sorts of things that we just discussed. But yeah, let's look at what kind of this Lucio player does here. So staying on the low ground here, now the Bob comes out, and the first thing he does is he actually focuses on the Bob. So he shoots the Bob, boops the Bob away. Just like an ulting Reaper, you never want to boop a Bob just in general, unless you know you're going to get environmental kill or you're like zoning him. But just like random boops like this, people are going to look at where he is initially and then probably turn away from him in order to find a safe angle. So booping him might kind of surprise a person if they go to where they thought was safe and they get pelted some more. And the other thing is that you've moved in a different location from your team. So you want to be moving with them, checking usually your Reinhardt, especially in kind of anchor teams. You want to be playing around the least mobile person on your team. So staying with your Reinhardt would have been really important here, even if you were only staying on the ground. Josh gets forced back, and then while this is happening, you can see that the Genji went up through this high ground here, and then went for the Ashe. At the same time that this Ashe is now using this high ground to shoot. So you're not checking either of their DPS, and their DPS is more or less free, because your team, they're running an Ashe right now, but the Ashe is playing super back, not nearly as aggressive as this Ashe has been playing throughout the match, and this high ground is being used. You are still on this low ground. Going forward, so you rejoin the team, and then what you're trying to accomplish here is you've gotten back to your team. And I'm not sure if have you used So you did use amp here, and it looks like the timing is that you used it for Bob. So you probably used it to split, but that caused your team to get very split. And then your goal right here is you are very fixated on shooting the Reinhardt shield just in general. And you get in front of the Reinhardt shield, which in this match this is not the first time that this has ended up getting killed. And then this is another one where you use boop there. Not really much reason for it that I can see, is that you're just kind of like using it because you use it, and then, you know, not your fault, but your team does get shattered, and that loses the fight. However, even before this happened, you were on the low ground, you got split from your team, not really going in with any other goal other than I'm going to exist as kind of like this mobile AoE health pack, and you're not using any of your cooldowns to really their full extent. So considering your Masters, I'm going to say that that's, I don't want to be offensive or anything, but Masters is higher than I would have expected from this level of gameplay. Maybe it's kind of a bad day or something like that, or maybe Masters is just a lot worse in general. But you need to be going into these fights with much more of a goal, objective-oriented mindset, and be removing resources that the opponent have, which includes space, which includes attention, controlling and deciding on engagements. Like, this is Lucio's massive strength. The engagement control is the reason why Lucio was an S-tier must-pick in pro play for the longest of times. Yeah. So we'll replay that fight just from the Lucio's perspective. So a lot of focus on the Reinhardt here. Bob comes in. Gets split. Okay, I hope that gave you a lot of things to talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of other issues throughout this specific VOD that was submitted. Ironically enough, grouping up in Masters is apparently not a thing. There's probably about 30% of the fights that happened in this VOD were lost because your team didn't group up, or the opponent's team didn't group up, or something like that. So just one final tip is that, above all, if you're going to be trying to do something, don't get picked first. And if somebody does get picked first, just take the 10 seconds to reset and group, please. Amazing that I have to say that on a Masters VOD. But yeah, so I don't really know what to label this or what that kind of general tip is, but yeah. Why not to be on the ground as a Lucio, I guess. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Another one coming out tomorrow. I'm just going to keep doing these while I am in the under the shelter-in-place order here in Dallas. Don't have my usual setup. So yeah, as long as you guys keep enjoying these, I will keep making them. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.